Welcome. Thank you for your interest in the I-264 Brambleton Avenue Improvement Study. This presentation is being brought to you by the Virginia Department of Transportation, also known as VDOT. VDOT, in partnership with the City of Norfolk, is studying ways to enhance safety and reduce congestion at the I-264 Brambleton Avenue interchange area in the City of Norfolk. We will begin by providing you with an overview of what we will cover today. The study working group made up of VDOT, the City of Norfolk, and RK&K used technical analysis of the safety and operations as well as engineering judgment to lead to the development of two alternatives that are being considered as improvements to mitigate the safety and congestion issues. We will discuss these two alternatives with you today. The presentation will conclude with ways for you to share your thoughts on these projects. Thanks again for your interest. The study area map is shown here. The limits of the study area include I-264 around the Brambleton Avenue interchange. It also includes portions of Brambleton Avenue from Park Avenue to Kimball Terrace. For the purposes of this study, Brambleton Avenue and Compostela Road are considered north-south roads to distinguish it from the east-west interstate directions. Northbound Brambleton Avenue heads toward downtown Norfolk, and southbound Compostela heads across the Elizabeth River. Motorists experience travel delays due to congestion and operational issues throughout the study area, especially coming off I-264 westbound to merge into northbound Brambleton Avenue. There are high crash rates on the corridor, both on Interstate and on Brambleton Avenue, particularly at the Park Avenue intersection. We are now going to discuss existing conditions, issues, and opportunities. One of the first things we look at in a STAR study is data on crashes that have occurred on the roadways. Between January 2014 and December 2018, 5 years, there have been 230 crashes in the study area. 65 of the crashes were on I-264 westbound, and 47 were on I-264 eastbound. There were 26 crashes on the interstate ramps. The Park Avenue intersection had 48 crashes, with 35% of those being angle crashes, which tend to be one of the most dangerous types of crashes. The Kimball Terrace intersection recorded 25 crashes, with the most common type being a rear-end crash, making up 31% of the crashes. Rear-end crashes are typically the most common type of crash at a signalized intersection. Our team also looked at traffic operations for existing conditions. In the tables, green indicates locations with good traffic flow, yellow is for fair traffic flow, and red is for poor traffic flow. Intersections are summarized by their average overall operation. It is common for several individual movements at an intersection to have worse operations than the overall average. Typically, side street movements and lower volume movements tend to have worse operations than the overall intersection average. Park Avenue currently operates with fair overall intersection operations during both the AM and PM weekday peak hours. This intersection has several individual movements that operate with poor service levels. Kimball Terrace at Compostela Road and Claiborne Avenue at the I-264 westbound off-ramp both currently operate with good levels of service during both the AM and PM weekday peak hours. This slide summarizes all the interstate service levels throughout the interchange, separated by direction. The locations begin upstream of the interchange and progress through and beyond the interchange. Interstate operations are defined by traffic density, how closely spaced the vehicles are to one another. The higher the density, the more difficult it is to change lanes. I-264 westbound currently operates with fair conditions throughout most of the interchange in the AM peak hour. It operates slightly better in the PM peak hour, however, most movements are still fair. I-264 eastbound currently operates with good levels of service throughout most of the interchange in the AM peak hour. However, during the PM peak hour, most of the interchange operates with fair to poor service levels. One of the main issues the study sought to address was the I-264 westbound to northbound Brambleton off-ramp queuing that presently occurs, particularly in the AM peak hour. The table shown on this slide presents the queue length in feet measured from the end of the ramp, the red dot. The yellow mark is a reference point representing a queue length of 1,200 feet. In the existing conditions, we find the maximum queue lengths on a daily basis exceed 1,000 feet in the AM peak hour, occasionally disrupting the flow of traffic on I-264 westbound. The worst AM peak hour queues about once a week will exceed 1,600 feet in length, which means the back of the queue spills onto the mainline interstate lanes. Queuing from interstate ramps back onto the interstate mainline lanes presents a very dangerous situation that we are attempting to mitigate. We are now going to present forecasted year 2048 conditions. These conditions include forecasted traffic growth. The no-build conditions are studied to provide an idea of what conditions may be in the future if there are no improvements and provide a basis for comparison with the build alternatives. By 2048, the intersection of Park Avenue and Brambleton Avenue is forecasted to operate with conditions between fair and poor levels of service during both peak hours. Many of the individual movements would operate with poor service levels. Both the intersection of Kimball Terrace at Compostela Road and Claiborne Avenue at the I-264 westbound off-ramp are forecast to operate with good levels of service. I-264 westbound is forecast to operate with poor service levels on the approach to the Brambleton Boulevard interchange in both peak hours with slightly worse conditions in the AM peak hour. This can be primarily attributed to queues that spill back from the off-ramp to northbound Brambleton Avenue. Past the off-ramp to northbound Brambleton, I-264 westbound operates with fair levels of service. I-264 eastbound operates with fair levels of service in the AM peak hour. In the PM peak hour, I-264 eastbound operates with fair to poor levels of service. Service levels are worse on the eastern side of the interchange because the total volume on Interstate is beginning to exceed capacity. Year 2048 no-build queue lengths are extreme during both peak hours. Even the average queue lengths will spill onto the mainline interstate and impact the mainline flow for the entirety of both peak hours. Potential concepts were developed after the year 2048 no-build year analysis was completed and reviewed by the study team. The study team, made up of VDOT, Norfolk, and the consultant, had a meeting to discuss and consider alternatives to mitigate safety and congestion issues present both in the current conditions as well as those found in the year 2048 no-build conditions. Initially, the consultant provided rough sketches and high-level traffic analysis of approximately 8 alternatives. The concepts considered included improvements to Brambleton Avenue, particularly around the Park Avenue intersection, as well as minor reconfigurations of the interchange. The study team considered these alternatives and eventually settled on 2 alternatives to carry forward with a detailed traffic analysis. The first alternative considered for detailed study is Alternative A, shown on this slide. It is made up of 5 components that are essentially independent of one another, meaning they could be constructed independently. Additionally, each of the components has independent utility, which means that each component brings its own value without needing to be paired with other improvements. Improvement number 1 is the installation of triple left turn lanes on the westbound Park Avenue approach to Brambleton Avenue. This improvement changes the number of left turn lanes from its current configuration of 2 left turn lanes to 3 left turn lanes. This improvement will provide a moderate increase in capacity at the intersection. Improvement number 2 installs a traffic signal at the end of the I-264 westbound to northbound Brambleton Avenue ramp and widens the end of the ramp to provide dual right turn lanes. Additionally, the northbound Brambleton Avenue approach would be restriped to provide 3 northbound through lanes at the proposed traffic signal. This will dramatically improve the flow of traffic where the ramp merges into Brambleton Avenue. There will be no more weaving of traffic between the ramp termini and Park Avenue that is presently the primary cause for queuing of the ramp onto Interstate. Improvement number 3 is similar to improvement number 2. It installs a traffic signal at the end of the I-264 westbound to southbound Compostela ramp and widens the end of the ramp to provide dual right turn lanes. Signalizing the ramp termini will eliminate the weaving traffic operations between the two ramps on southbound Brambleton Avenue. Improvement number 4 widens the beginning of the southbound Brambleton Avenue to eastbound I-264 ramp to 2 lanes for a distance before merging the ramp back down to a single lane. The purpose of this improvement is to allow 2 lanes from southbound Brambleton Avenue to exit to I-264 eastbound, which will provide for a more even balance of traffic across the southbound lanes, as opposed to the outside lane carrying a much heavier percentage of the traffic. Improvement number 5 extends the acceleration lane on Interstate by approximately 400 feet on the ramp from southbound Brambleton Avenue to I-264 eastbound. The existing acceleration lane is not as long as it should be. Lengthening the acceleration lane will make it easier for the on-ramp traffic to get up to speed to merge into the interstate more easily. The second alternative considered for detailed study is alternative B, shown on this slide. It is very similar to alternative A in that it is made up of 2 of the components that are considered in alternative A, but it does not have the other 3 components. Again, the 2 components in this alternative are essentially independent of one another, meaning they could be constructed independently. Additionally, each of the components has independent utility, which means that each component brings its own value without needing to be paired with other improvements. This alternative was studied in detail to determine if these 2 improvements were sufficient to mitigate some of the major deficiencies found in the year 2048 no-build conditions. Improvement number 1 installs a traffic signal at the end of the I-264 westbound to northbound Brambleton Avenue ramp and widens the end of the ramp to provide dual right turn lanes. Additionally, the northbound Brambleton Avenue approach would be restriped to provide 3 northbound through lanes at the proposed traffic signal. This will dramatically improve the flow of traffic where the ramp merges into Brambleton Avenue. There will be no more weaving of traffic between the ramp termini and Park Avenue. That is presently the reasoning for queuing of the ramp onto Interstate. Improvement number 2 is similar to improvement number 1. It installs a traffic signal at the end of the I-264 westbound to southbound Compostela Road ramp and widens the end of the ramp to provide dual right turn lanes. Signalizing the ramp termini will eliminate the weaving traffic operations between the 2 ramps on southbound Brambleton Avenue. Both alternatives A and B provide for good operations in the design year of 2048 at most of the study area intersections: Kimball Terrace and Compostela, Claiborne Avenue at I-264 westbound off-ramp, and at both of the new I-264 westbound off-ramp intersections with Brambleton Avenue. In alternative A, the intersection of Park Avenue at Brambleton Avenue, which include the triple left turns on westbound Park Avenue, operates with fair overall intersection levels of service in both peak hours. Some of the individual movements are forecast to experience poor levels of service. Alternative B is forecast to operate with fair levels of service in the AM peak hour and between fair and poor in the PM peak hour. Again, some of the individual movements will operate with poor levels of service in both peak hours. This comparison displays the modest improvement found in alternative A provided by the triple left turn lane improvement. This slide displays the forecasted year 2048 build conditions levels of service for alternatives A and B on the interstate. Overall, the conditions on the interstate are similar. On I-264 westbound, alternatives A and B provide the same results for all movements across the interchange. There are fair to between fair and poor service levels in both the AM and PM peak hours for both alternatives. The main thing to point out with I-264 westbound operations is that there are no queues on interstate originating from Brambleton Avenue that are impacting operations. On I-264 eastbound, alternatives A and B provide very similar results, with alternative A providing slightly better operation because of the extended acceleration lane. The one red box in alternative A is an anomaly because of how the modeling results are pooled and overall, alternative A provides slightly better operations. In the AM peak hour, both alternatives provide good to fair levels of service. However, in the PM peak hour, the conditions fall to between fair and poor levels of service as I-264 eastbound begins to reach capacity on the east side of the interchange. This slide summarizes the I-264 westbound off-ramp to northbound Brambleton Avenue queue links and the build conditions. Both alternatives A and B keep queue links even at their maximum levels to manageable links so they do not impact the mainline interstate during either peak hour. Both alternatives A and B accomplish one of the main goals of the study, which was to keep queued vehicles off interstate. The next step in the project development process is identifying and pursuing funding. The decisions on how to proceed with this project is primarily in the hands of the City of Norfolk. The most likely funding source for these improvements is SmartScale. However, other funding sources could be pursued. After funding is secured, the following steps are detailed design and environmental review. Thank you for viewing today's presentation. We would like to request your thoughts on the proposed projects we described today. You may contact us through the following ways. Take the survey using the link on the project webpage. Email us at allen.hunt@vdot.virginia.gov. Mail comments to Mr. Ray Hunt, Hampton Roads District Planner, 7511 Burbage Drive, Suffolk, Virginia, 23435, or call us by contacting Mr. Ray Hunt at 757-956-3000. Please submit your comments by May 10th to be considered as VDOT evaluates potential future projects for further study. We appreciate your interest in the I-264 Brambleton Avenue Corridor Improvement Study. If you would like to learn more about other projects in the VDOT STARS program, please visit www.virginiadot.org/projects/stars.asp. Thank you.